Welcome to another session of this online summit series, Self-Empowerment and Mastery. I'm Loren Gailey with my co-host Lori Rayon, and today we're talking with Peter Tung. As we're talking about self-empowerment and miracles, one thing that you can do is understand your gene keys, your makeup in the universe, how you came into this planet, what you're here to do. It's liberating as you unlock your hidden potential. Let's welcome Peter Tung. Welcome, Peter. Thank you for being here.
It's my absolute pleasure and lovely to work with both of you again.
So excited that you're here.
Yes, thank you, Lori. We would love to have your definition of self-empowerment, what that means to you, self-empowerment, and how are miracles made from being self-empowered?
Okay. Well, thank you for that wonderful opening. So in the gene keys that I work with on a daily basis with people, essentially, it is a reflection of the I Ching. And in the I Ching, there are 6 lines. And the 6 lines represent the way in which we operate within the different gene keys. And each line really corresponds to one of the chakras. So when you talk about self-empowerment, we're talking about the first line in the I Ching and in the gene keys. The first line is the foundation that you set. So self-empowerment is making sure that we have connected very deeply into our root chakra. Now, many people that will be listening to this session are people who are light workers, star seeds, and they are of the new earth. They're not really of the old earth. And so they have great difficulty being in the 3D world, which tends to prevent them from getting fully grounded in their bodies. So the next phase of our stepping into the new earth is a little bit opposite to what we might expect. And that is to become fully embodied in our physical bodies and to really love our physical bodies and the sensuous nature of being human. Because a lot of these starseeds talk about wanting to go home. And I say to them, you are home. This is where you've chosen to live now. And don't imprint into the future the challenges you've had in this life so far. Because we're going to create a beautiful new Garden of Eden, just like your background, Lauren. We're going to create that. And so the future is going to be magnificent. So don't miss the boat. Don't miss the opportunity to be part of this new earth. And if there is such a thing as reincarnation, then what we're really doing is setting ourselves up for the next incarnation, which is going to be fantastic. So a lot of these starseeds say, I'm not coming back. I'm not doing this again. And I'm saying, oh, yes, you will want to, because it's going to be beautiful. So the challenge then is getting all the way down into our root chakra. That's where our self-empowerment lies. And I call it our dragon force. And working with dragons really helps to ground you in all the way down and in. And it's having this really inner, solid, grounded strength that nothing can shake me, while at the same time living a life of majesty and ease out in the world. So to turn that then into manifestation and miracles is why we don't manifest miracles, is because we aren't grounded. So it remains a fantasy. So the more we get grounded into our bodies, the more we can actually anchor this energy into the new earth. And my understanding is the big challenge with the new earth is grounding it into form, because we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here on the earth in the new earth energies. So we need to work with embodying those energies into form, and that's when the miracles will really start happening. And they're already happening, and they're happening through synchronicity. And the synchronicity that I'm experiencing right now is just remarkable. And I'll give you an example, because to me this seemed really, really significant on the bigger scale, not just in my world. And that was right at the end of October, we had the lunar eclipse, and it was taking place in the 28th gene key, which is having to face the deepest fear that you have. And I had this session with a woman who had just come back from Egypt. And she was in Egypt when the war started. And with the 28th gene key, she had it twice in her profile. The whole of her pearl sequence is Scorpio. You'll appreciate that, Lauren. So she got two 28s, a 1, and a 43, all Scorpio gene keys. And she said when the war broke out, she was still in Egypt. She could feel the fear arising on all sides of that deepest possible fear we can have, which in the Middle East is of survival. She felt that. But the positive side of her journey was she was leading a retreat there, but she was on her own and she was going into these different sites, the temples, the Valley of the Queens and Kings. And she ended up in the temple of Sekhmet. And you'll enjoy this, Laurie, because Sekhmet is the lion-headed goddess. And interesting with Buddha, because one of the beliefs is that the domestic cats of today were the big cats of the Egyptian dispensation. So she went down into the temple of Sekhmet, and there's a full-size statue of Sekhmet with this lion-headed goddess being, and you're not allowed to touch her. And the guide who took her there took her hand and put it on Sekhmet. And Sekhmet came alive. She started to move around. Her head was turning on both sides and her body was moving. And what this woman said was, we have this false belief, another one of those false beliefs, that these ancient sites and temples are old stone structures. And they aren't. They're consciousness, they're present, they're here now, today, living. And so she had this remarkable experience. So the very next day, I got an email. And in that email, it was from Aluna Joy, who's a wonderful spiritual leader who does lots of pilgrimages. And the opening line in her email post was the Sekhmet temple. And I'm thinking, whoa, hang on a minute, there's something here. And then she started talking about that she'd been at the Sekhmet temple almost the same time as this other woman, and that Sekhmet communicates with her and was telling her how annoyed she was what was happening in the Middle East, and that essentially she'd left the temple. She'd gone to sort it out. So again, that consciousness is not confined in that level of ability. Now, we might be stretching some people's beliefs here, but that's what we need to do. We need to get out of the old belief system we've been trapped in and realize that everything has consciousness. And so Sekhmet is alive and well. And then within 2 days, I had 3 more people talk about Sekhmet. It was just remarkable. And then Zia, who I work closely with, sent me an email, and she was very much involved in this. And she said, I don't think Sekhmet's a lion. I think she's a cheetah. And she looked it up in research, and there was another Egyptian goddess called Mafdet, who was a cheetah goddess, and she morphed into Sekhmet. So Sekhmet actually was both a cheetah and a lion. And the next thing that happens is we look into the dream arc, which I'm going to talk about later, and each gene key has a creature associated with the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. So the mammals are all the gifts. So when we looked into it, the cheetah is the 28th gene key, which was what we were talking about in the first place. And the lion is the 25th gene key. So we've got these beautiful connections now between the gene keys and the creatures of the earth. So the shadow frequencies are all the creepy crawlies and the reptiles and the snakes and the fish. And the gifts are all the mammals and the birds are all the siddhis. So my daughter, I just had an amazing experience in the summer. She's down in Mazatlan, Mexico. And one morning she went outside of her trailer and there was a condor standing on the ground outside her front door, looking straight at her. And the condor is the 51st gene key, which is the gene key of the awakening. Now, this condor hasn't left. He's befriended the trailer park. And there's a wonderful little scene of this woman who's next door to my daughter, stroking the condor, giving it a shower. And when this woman goes for a walk with her dog, the condor goes hopping behind them. It goes for a walk with them. Quite remarkable. And then, even more recently, down on the beach in Mazatlan, a crocodile showed up. And the crocodile is the 60th gene key, which is the shadow of limitation. And of course, they had to close the beach. So there's a massive limitation going on. So this synchronistic connection to all the creatures, as well as to human beings, because we're all creatures as well, this synchronicity is what's leading us into the miracles. And the more we acknowledge and honor synchronicity, the more it happens. And sometimes it's really silly, small things. But when you acknowledge it, more happens, because what it's demonstrating to us is the interconnectedness of all things. So when we go on that journey of believing and trusting in the miracle, then wonderful things happen.
That was beautiful, Peter. So well described and so up my alley. Everything that we do.
So. Yeah,
with
exactly.
the partnership that anybody doesn't know is with the Master Cat, and Peter knows Puda well, and we've worked together. And she says the same thing over and over. In fact, she'll sit out here in the yard by the pool, and we have these beautiful angel statues and fairy statues, and she'll put her nose right up into them, And then sometimes I come back out and I go, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm talking to the angel. What does it look like I'm doing?"
Exactly.
They're having full-on conversations, and it looks like a statue to everyone else. And then the Sekhmet thing it's so perfect, because she speaks to Sekhmet and she speaks to Bast, and she talks about her Egyptian lives. And see, animals have, as you know, they don't have any block to their memory or their akash. They're fully aware of all their lives. And the stewardship that you mentioned is so powerful for people now to understand at a different level that the animals are the master teachers and healers on the planet. They don't have any karma. They're here in stewardship. And so when we look to them through these different portals that you have and I have, and it's just wisdom, it's wisdom.
Yeah.
I just want to share that that was so amazing that Sekhmet came alive in that temple, that she saw that. That's so amazing and so beautiful. And then to believe in that, and to really believe in that, and that's a miracle in itself. You also mentioned that as we ground so deeply into the root, that is the empowerment, and the dragon energy will help us with that. I want to just share a little synchronistic episode or an awareness of something that happened to me maybe about 5 years ago. Went to a women's retreat with a very dear soul sister who was leading it along the way. And her partner that were holding the retreat were having an issue. So the group itself was literally right down the middle. Half of us were with the one, half of us were with the other. It was quite fascinating. And it was a great trip. But as I was going to this retreat, I saw clouds in the shape of dragons all over the place. And it was actually energy medicine for me. It was giving me groundedness, but a lot of strength, so that when I showed up and I arrived in that retreat and we witnessed what was going on, the dragons were there to show us their support. They were supporting us. And my friend who was having this issue with her partner actually saw dragons as well. And then we saw them in the physical form as little dragon toys in the gift shops, like everywhere. So it was really quite fascinating, this dragon energy. I know you're going to talk about the winter solstice and the gene keys a little bit more, and the dream arc, but can you talk a little bit more about the dragon energy and how people can work with that? Because some would say it's make believe, but we know better than that. It's multidimensional. And now they're showing themselves to us more as we arise in our energy, in our consciousness.
Well, let's go back to the original dragon story, Archangel Michael and the dragon, because again, the mythology is wrong that he killed the dragon, but he didn't kill the dragon. He was demonstrating that what we needed to do was to transcend our lower human ego and our animal instincts. So opening the dragon up is what he was doing to a higher level of consciousness. So as we know, on the planet today, there are significant numbers of people who are still asleep. They're not awake. So the dragon energy enables us, those that are awake, to ground this energy in, and those who are not, to potentially awaken them. So to me, the balance of Archangel Michael and the dragon is that the angels and archangels come in from above, and they can come and help us, but they can't get down into the really deep, dark places, which is what the dragons do. So the dragons come up from underneath to support us in those shadow frequencies. So what you were describing with your friend was exactly what the dragons were doing. They were supporting you and the group and her from below. And they create this very solid, grounded platform for us to work with. And then the angels and the archangels can come in from above and do the tidying up, if you like, from above. So the combination of Michael and the dragon is, I think, is the most powerful thing that we can do in the world in terms of working with this. And I had the really challenging situation when I was the school principal of working with a girl who was born into a satanic ritual abuse cult. And it was by working with Michael and the dragons that we actually managed to rescue her from that. And she did. And she moved from North America to Europe and ended up sending me a message to say she got a first-class honors degree in psychology, not surprisingly, eventually, because she understood all of the conditioning and the programming that we've all been exposed to different degrees. So for me, the dragon and the archangels together, and it doesn't have to be Michael, it can be any of the angels or archangels you feel connected with, working with these dragons. And these dragons are a whole variety of style and color and elemental energy. So some of them are air, some of them are water, some are fire, some are earth. Some have these beautiful colors. The golden dragon, for example, for me is a beautiful one. The deep blue dragon, which is the one that works with Michael to clear out all these discordant energies. So this dragon should actually be our best friend.
Yes.
All
I
right.
think the dragon energy is initiatory.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it takes us on a journey, and the more you're willing to go there and overcome the fear and befriend them, if you will, the better the teaching can become, and the overcoming of that survival energy that we have.
Exactly.
I think they're very fully present in Hollow Earth now. It's been a part of some of the cosmology that Seth teaches through me. It's beautiful, and like you said, they're very colorful.
And I think the other piece about the dragon energy is when you feel really sure about yourself internally, then you walk through the world with majesty and grace and love and harmony and peace. I think the word that I like to use is equanimity, where whatever's going on in the world around you, you're holding that solid core presence. So my advice for your listeners and the viewers is, if you are someone who tends to spend a lot of time out in woo-woo land, to really practice getting deep down in the body and get fully grounded. And when people go down to the root chakra who have not spent much time there, it can be uncomfortable. It can feel agitating. And we just have to sit through that feeling until it clears, and it will clear. And then the beautiful thing is, according to Richard Rudd in the Gene Keys, the more safe and secure you can feel inside your own root chakra, the more safe and secure you are in the world, because you create a vortex of safety around you from the inside out. And I think my strongest message from today is we need to do this from the inside out and not allow ourselves to be influenced by external forces. And we now need to go within and really trust our own inner truth, our own inner knowing.
It's fascinating because in the energy work that we've done with the chakras, that root chakra is one of the most difficult places for me. And I thought it was just me, but listening to you, it's most of humanity. We have that. It's a tribal thing. And so, wow. What would you recommend? So being in the root chakra, would it be seeing the red root chakra and spinning it around and maybe dancing and imagining that you're in that root chakra? And
no, I make it much, much simpler than that, Lauren. We can actually do it if you want to.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm all about simplicity and just focusing on what's really important. So what we'll do is we'll just take a gentle journey all the way down into the root. And those people who are listening or viewing, make sure you're not doing anything else at this time. Just only be less than 5 minutes and just see how you get on. Okay. So let's have everybody just close their eyes and just relax. One of the most important things to understand is this has got nothing to do with the mind. So we can let the mind have a nice little nap as we go on this little journey down inside the body. So perhaps surprisingly, we'll start with focusing on the top of the crown, right on top of the head. Just feel a little tingling or a warming sensation on top of the head. And then just bring your awareness down into the brain structures, into the two hemispheres of the brain, the hypothalamus, the pineal, the pituitary, and just bring them to a place of stillness, of calm, just being present. And then move down into the throat. Again, relaxing the throat muscles so that we can speak our truth, stand in our truth, and be our truth. And then come down into the heart. Now just breathing gently and easily through the heart itself. Just feeling the gentle rise and fall of your chest. And just feel the softening around the edges of your heart as you open your heart to self-love, to the love of Mother Earth, to the love of all sentient beings, the love of the universe. And then bring your attention down, right down into the belly, behind the navel. Now breathing even deeper through the belly. Again, just feeling into how it feels in the belly and just relaxing, calming, softening. This is the still point in the body and worth spending time here as well. And now just bring your awareness all the way down into the root, right down between the legs. We're not going down the legs. We're not going into the earth. We are stopping in the root itself, the perineum, the base of the spine, the coccyx, that area in the body. There's a lot of spiritual bypass goes on, missing this point out because it is tricky. And if people have had any form of trauma in their lives, the tendency is to go up and out of body. And so it's another one of these paradoxes that this is the place that creates absolute safety within us. So now we're just breathing as deeply as we can right down into that root space. And all we've got to do is just sit and be with it and feel into how it feels. And there may be some unease, there may be some discomfort, there may be this agitation, a desire to get out of there as fast as possible. So now it requires a deep and profound trust in yourself, trusting your own inner world of safety, your own self-empowerment. Knowing that if you can feel completely safe in this space, then you create this vortex of safety around you. And you have nothing to be concerned about. And for some people, it may take a few attempts to do this, but it's very straightforward so long as you're patient and let it flow beautifully through your body. So just a quick visit on this occasion, but you can come back anytime you wish to feel into how it feels. So now just make your way back up into your heart. And just fill your heart now with the gold frequency, the frequency of the new earth energies, the living, alchemical, conscious gold. In deep, deep gratitude to be part of this summit and to be part of this particular session today. And then when you're ready, just very gently become aware of the space around you. Take a few more gentle breaths. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So what was that like for you both?
It was beautiful. And it was, like you said, I like that it was simple. It's easy to do in just a few minutes and to get people in touch with that energy that's potentially blocked for them.
Yep.
Again, this is where self-empowerment comes, is when we can be with all parts of ourselves and be really honest and authentic about what we're feeling. I always tell my clients that if you can get really clear and allow yourself to feel as opposed to try to analyze, come back to the mind and try, oh, that's not working, or that's somebody else's fault, or the world is screwed up, all of those emotional issues that come up. But when we can get into the root, you can feel your part in it and get clear with it and know that all can be well when we can get clear with what might perceive to be negativity or survival. We can come back to love, and love is always the answer. Always.
Great, Laurie. Thank you.
Yes, I could feel the empowerment in that. Yes, the sovereignty, there's a sovereign empowerment to it where there's a strength actually, and that is the embodiment that you're talking about. So I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's what a gift. And we can do this. And then coming back into the heart, wow. I can see the connection between the heart and the root, and how we can be more embodied by going into the root in that way.
Exactly. Great.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to talk about the three different, you mentioned the shadow and the gift and the city. And these are the three phases in each of the gene keys that we look at, that we bring our awareness to. And I wanted to say, we talked a little bit about the shadow, but isn't it amazing that the mammals are part of the gift? Do you want to explain a little bit more about the animals associated? Because what I want to share as well is the birds. If the bird is the city, then birds, when we do ceremony out on the land in Peru or the sacred sites, the birds, the condors, the birds, the eagles, they always appear. Almost as if they're multidimensional and they're appearing in gratitude for the ceremony. So
and the ravens.
And the ravens. Ooh.
Having incredible experiences here with ravens, Well,
Yeah.
I always have, but it seems there's more than usual living here now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I can't give you a clear explanation of that because obviously this is Richard's, not my transmission. But he obviously dove into this very deeply to come up with this dream arc with the different creatures in the shadow and the gift and the mammals and then the birds. But I've got my own bird story, which again is pretty unique, which I'll tell you about. So last Saturday on the 11/11, we chose to do a ceremony, and it was belting down with rain here in Victoria. And we went into Scorpio in the landscape. We have a landscape zodiac here where there are elements in the land which reflect the stars in the sky. So we went into the Scorpio landscape, which is a beautiful park called Beacon Hill Park. And in it, there's this beautiful grove of big old trees. And we decided to go there to do the ceremony because we were building a despacho bundle of the Quero tradition. So we're sitting on the ground in this space, building this beautiful bundle for Mother Earth. But it was probably the only place without being inside, which was not going to be too wet because it was covered by these beautiful trees. So we decided to go in there. And when we arrived and we set up our altar, all these peacocks arrived. And there are wild peacocks that live in this park, but they obviously were sheltering out of the rain as well. And there were male, beautiful, blue crested peacocks. There were the female peacocks, and there was a white peacock. So we had all three levels, if you like, of that. And then as we were doing the building up of the despacho, they just kept walking in a counterclockwise circle around us, pecking away at the land and picking, whatever they do. And the peacock is the 64th gene key, which is the final gene key. And it's the gene key of illumination in the higher expression, because they are the birds, obviously, in that situation. So again, Lauren, to answer your question, I'm not answering it because to me, the way I look at this is just to really pay attention to what shows up. And so just 2 days ago, I went for a walk down on the waterfront, and there's an eagle perch. and there was an eagle perched on the top of this pole, this tall pole, and I sat there at a picnic table just looking at the eagle, and I could feel the warm embrace of the sun on my back. It was a cool day, but I could feel this warmth right in the back of my heart. And then this eagle did two big loops around and came back to the pole. And I think it was practicing its landing, actually. But it was just this magical moment that we really have to embrace and not ignore. Some people didn't even look up and see it, the unconscious ones. So we just have to really embrace nature and love every minute, including the trees and the leaves. I mean, all the leaves, the golden leaves fluttering down right now. It's just a beautiful sight when the sun catches the leaves falling. And it's just this magical world that we live in when we can get rid of all the rest and really focus on what matters.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so beautiful. I'm reminded to share a story because in my mind, I'm going to speak about this in my presentation, but in my mind, I witnessed a miracle by believing, by being grounded, by listening to my heart so much that I did what I felt I had to do without my mind getting in the way. And this deals with birds. We had one morning, really early in the morning, I heard a loud bang. Usually I think it's the ice machine in my refrigerator, but it was like, wow, that was so loud. What was that? So I get up and I go and I look outside, and it was a bird, and it looked like it was dead, and it had hit the window. And inside me, I just started toning. I just started toning, and I kept toning, and I kept hearing, I heard a word, believe. And as I kept toning, after a couple of minutes, this little bird popped up. Its eyes were still closed. And I thought it was dead. It was a baby owl.
Oh, wow.
And then I went to get my camera, and then I started videoing it. And then I kept toning, and the sound of my tone, I looked around to see if anybody was listening to me. But then the eyes opened up and it looked right at me. It was a baby owl about this big.
Wow.
And it sat there. And I kept toning, and the sound of the tone actually started turning into like an owl hoot, which was really
yeah, sure.
But I got out of the way, and I was just toning. So this went on for about maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then the baby owl flew away.
Wow. So the owl is the 48th gene key, which is the gene key of wisdom. So you were being the wise woman in toning that owl back to life.
I get goosebumps still thinking.
Wow.
I know, it's just amazing. And this is tone. And I heard believe. And that to me.
I have a little bird story I want to share.
Yes.
The last day in August, my dear friend and webmaster passed away. Some 20 years. He had a marvelous career. He was a well-known musician. His name was Paul Lloyd Warner. And, we were really good friends. And so we had a celebration of life for him here at the house. And a lot of people came. It was beautiful. We paid homage to his music and our friendship. And we sat around the pool. We had too many people to be in the house. So we were out around my pool in my beautiful backyard. And as we were sitting there, a hawk came. And it landed on the fence, which is between myself and the property behind me. And hawks are not indigenous or normal here. And I'm in the suburbs of San Diego. I'm in Oceanside, and it just perched itself right on the fence, right in the area between the trees, so we could really clearly see him. And it was like 10 minutes he was there, and he was just radiating this light. And his best friend, who'd been with him, they lived together many years, and he called out and he said, "It's Paulo, it's Paulo." That was his nickname. And the bird flipped up his wings, and he kind of went like this, and this stuff just doesn't happen in normal life, where a hawk comes and sits on your fence for 10 minutes. And so we totally felt the spirit of Paul coming in through that bird. And then one of the people grabbed their phone, and I don't know, they looked up the mythology or whatever of the hawk, and the hawk was known as Apollo. And he lived many years in Maui, and his name was Apollo when he lived there. They called him Apollo.
There you go. Yeah.
So talk about, you can feel that. That was incredible. And he even let us take pictures of him. So we have that to remember that beautiful hawk that came. So.
Yeah. Great story.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
One of a kind, very
So
sweet.
cool. All right, so everyone's going to be paying attention to these signs now, the animal signs. Let's go back to the gift. And I find it very interesting that it's the mammals with the gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
That.
Sorry?
Anything else you want to add on the mammals around the gift?
Not really. No, I just think paying attention to them. It's just whatever shows up is showing you something to pay attention to.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. So let's see. Introducing the dream arc and the winter solstice. Here we are coming into a really powerful gateway. Can you share more on what the gene keys have in store around this gateway, around this winter solstice?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I'd like to talk about all four of the major dates, which is the winter, summer solstice, and the equinoxes, because there's a wonderful dowser in England, Rory Duff, and he has dowsed the ley lines and vortexes of the planet, and he's a master at it. And one of the things that he's realized is that over the course of the 4 dates, the equinoxes and solstices, is when the ley lines and vortexes all come into perfect resonant harmony. And what's been happening is it's been going to a higher frequency and lasting longer. And it used to begin on the eve of the equinox or the solstice and complete on the sundown of that day. So it's lasting for 24 hours. But over the last few years, he's seen that the time has expanded significantly. Now, his belief is, and he's the expert in this, I'm not, his belief is that on the winter solstice 2024, so that's a year away, those resonant frequencies will have expanded so much that they're going to overlap each other. In other words, we'll be in that resonant frequency all the time. Well, if there's a time when we're going to step into the new earth fully, that could be one of those dates. So really important then for people to realize that there is this very special opportunity to come into perfect harmonic resonance with Mother Earth on those 4 dates. And now it doesn't really matter whether it's the actual day, the day before, the day after, because this energy is expanding. So every year, the same gene keys come up at the same time. So the winter solstice is the 10th gene key. And the shadow of the 10th gene key involves narcissism. And it's quite remarkable, Lauren, when I have sessions with people with the 10th gene key, I say to them, what's been your exposure to narcissism? And they're just stunned by that knowing. And how could you know that? That's what it's in the 10th gene key. And so what the 10th gene key does in the shadow is to shrink the self-esteem of the person, which is what we're talking about, self-empowerment. So people who've been exposed to narcissism lose a sight of who they are. So the shadow is actually called self-obsession because it takes you down the rabbit hole of losing sight of who you are because of the narcissistic approach. Well, right now, the whole world is being governed by narcissists, and that's the biggest problem we have on the planet. So the winter solstice is this wonderful opportunity to go deep down into the darkness. In the northern hemisphere, it's the least day of light, and to illuminate from the inside out, to bring us back out of the shadow of narcissism and set ourselves free. And the gift of it is naturalness. So when you can come back out of that deep, dark rabbit hole, then all you've got to be in the future is just be true to yourself, your true natural self. And I always have a good laugh with people because the city is being, and in Richard Rudd's book, he calls that divine laziness. So people with the 10th gene key are not supposed to work hard. It's just their presence that does it once they've healed those wounds. So as we go into the darkest day of the year, it's this opportunity to go as deep as we can to make sure we still don't have any influence from narcissism and that we are now being true to our true natural self. And then the opposing gene key is the summer solstice, is the 15th gene key. And the 15th gene key is about our inner flowering. The siddhi is fluorescence. So it's when we really go into our self-flourishing, our inner blooming, where we see the inner flowers expressing themselves in the world. It's when we're in our highest expression of who we really are. And that's the 15th gene key. And then the 46th gene key is the fall equinox. And that is the shadow of not feeling safe in the world. So we're back into self-empowerment again, where people who've had life's experiences, often beginning in the womb. You know, one of the gene keys, the 57th gene key, is to do with what happens when you're in your mother's womb. And you get imprinted in your mother's womb for the first 21 years of life. So there is an imprinting that's already happened before you're born that will play out in those first 21 years of life. And part of the gene keys is to work through the three major developmental ages, the first 7 years, the second 7 years, and the third 7 years, the physical body developing, the emotional body, and the mental body. So again, if you've had any trauma during that time, it again can lead you to not feeling safe in your body. And so that's the 46th gene key. The shadow is seriousness. So people with the 46th gene key tend to have a bit of a furrowed brow and have a very serious outlook on life because they actually don't feel totally safe being here in the world. And yet the gift is delight and the siddhi is ecstasy. So when you can get rid of that not feeling safe and become self-empowered, then you can raise the frequency into delight and ecstasy. And then one of my favorite gene keys is the spring equinox, which is the 25th gene key. And this one is one that Richard would say, if you get this one, you really got them all in this one gene key, because the shadow is constriction. And it's not receiving the love that you need as a child for all sorts of different reasons. And it comes as a tightness in the chest between the heart and the throat. So whenever you feel that tightening up, it's when you're not receiving the love that you need. That's the constriction. And the gift is this really, really important word, acceptance. So when we can accept everything that's happened in our lives, because it's all been a setup for our success. And the beautiful thing about the gene keys is it tells us this was all supposed to happen. We chose this for some crazy reason to help us evolve. And why is it? I mean, one of the great mysteries in life for me is, why did we choose suffering as our route to evolution, to enlightenment? It seems a very strange thing for us to do, but we did. So this is the acceptance of everything that's happened to set us free. And the siddhi is universal love. And as I said earlier, this is the mammal of the lion. This is the lion heart, where you expand your love out into the world, into everything that exists. And I do know a couple of people who've had the siddhi of universal love come to them, and it's beyond words. There are no words to express that feeling of love. It's like it grows and it grows. It absorbs more and more of you into this loving frequency. So these four gene keys are really the four pillars of the whole gene key transmission. And so if you get these four, you've got a really good starting point for the journey itself. And it happens on these very significant dates in our calendar. So we're moving into that right now. We're coming into the winter solstice. So it's a great opportunity for us to consider wherever we've been exposed to any sort of narcissistic behavior and clear it all up so that we can be our true natural self. I do want to come back to one other gene key because it's very relevant right now during this time, December 8 to 12, because it's the 26th gene key, which is the trickster energy. And what is when I say to people, do you know that you're a trickster? Some people say, oh yeah, I know that. And others say, oh no, what do you mean? So the trickster energy is the person that has the ability to dissolve into the background and not be seen, like a chameleon, and then suddenly pop out and make a point that no one else has seen. It's almost like they can see round corners, and they have this incredible ability to make a point. How do you know that, people say? And they just do. and they have this ability to communicate really successfully. But in the dream arc, the creatures involved with this are the coyote, because the coyote is trickster energy. But it's also the Hanuman monkey of Hindu tradition. It's Merlin the magician, and it's Mercury the element. So I want to show you something, because this is part of that trickster energy. So in Richard's book, he calls the city the Great Cinnabar Field. And the Great Cinnabar Field is because cinnabar is the main form of mercury mineral. It's mercury sulfide. And it's just as toxic as mercury metal. And here I am holding it. So the pink color in here is cinnabar, just as toxic as mercury metal. And remember I said earlier that these objects are living conscious beings. So this was a completely clear quartz orb. Can you see there's like a line of slightly clearer there? So this was a regular quartz orb, and they spin it until it's molten. They inject the cinnabar inside, and then they keep spinning it till it cools down. So the outside is quartz, so you can handle it, and the inside is cinnabar, which is a toxin remover from the body. So now we're going to do another little trick, if that's okay with you. I'm going to place it right down in front of what would be my womb space. Close your eyes again and take the opportunity to release any blockage that you have inside you. And this is for all of the guests on the show as well. Anything that you still feel blocked with in your life, allow it to flow out of your womb space, out of your belly, into the orb. That's its job. It's like a toxin vacuum cleaner, removal from the body. And just let it go and just let it flow. Let it release itself. And then just open your eyes when you're ready. So what happens is it's a conscious being, so it will shift. So can you now see a different clarity in here? So it shows us that it's been doing some work here. It's clearing energetically. And this goes into every ceremony that we do. So on Saturday, it was in our grove of trees with us on the ground. It goes in the waters of Mount Shasta, of Glastonbury, of the Chalice Well. We put it into the earth when we're doing earthwork. So it is part of our journey. It is well, look at that. It's really cleared.
Wow.
So it's part of the work. It's a conscious living entity that we work with. And that's the 26 gene key. So I'll just tell you a very quick funny story. In the dream arc, you create these 12 creatures around you as they become like your team. There are 192 creatures, obviously. The 64 gene keys, 3 levels, so 192 creatures. So you choose these 12 different archetypes to hold space with you at the center. And one of those archetypes is the trickster. So there were 12 images in the trickster section. It's a quest, the trickster quest. So when I went into the trickster quest, I chose the image of the fox to be my creature, my trickster creature. And then when I clicked on it, the monkey came up. It was a trick. I didn't get the fox, I got the monkey. Isn't that great? So they played a trick on me. And that's the beautiful thing about this. It's fun. It's to be played with. It's not to be taken too seriously, but it's very significant at the same time.
Wow. I know people are going to want to have you give them a reading for Gene Keys, and that's part of the special offer that you have contributed for this summit. Thank you for that. That's right here on this webpage. People can scroll down and see what that's about. I've had a session with you. Lori's had a session with you. It is profound. There's such a clarity that comes. There's a deeper understanding. And I love how it's unlocking hidden potential. It really does allow us to see that. And I wanted to just share as well, when you were doing this with the cinnabar, if it's a consciousness, that's always around. I think this was working with us last night in the dream space before
Yeah.
we were recording. I often find it so fascinating that, so I awoke with an extreme level of clarity today, like almost a breakthrough. And
Yeah.
it was something from something that I'm creating. And so when we did that exercise with the Cinnabar, wow, I felt such a freshness from it. And
Yeah.
that tells us that it is multidimensional, it's quantum, it's outside of linear time and space. Do you agree?
Totally, Lauren. And when you said that, what I've noticed is when I set an appointment with someone for on a future date for their session, stuff starts happening straight away. So yes, they start having things coming up that need to be dealt with, or they have a wonderful experience. But yeah, as soon as we make that connection, then the energy starts working with them. Absolutely, yes. So yes, that would make total sense.
I just want to say to people listening that working with Peter is it's life changing. I mean, I'm not saying that working with other people isn't. I'm just saying you owe it to yourself to have a session with Peter. Really, you do. And mine was so life changing that I'm feeling due again. So my birthday's coming up. I'm going to be contacting you for another one because it just
Great.
changed me so much. I mean, it's such a deep wisdom and understanding, and it's unlike any other type of session. It's hard to describe because it is so unlike other types of sessions that I think that you've probably had or create or do. Just it's so profound and so initiatory. It's so authentic. It's so validating. So Peter's you got to do it, everybody.
Well, thanks for that, Laurie. I think one of the reasons I do it is it is profound. There's no doubt that it's absolutely precisely on the money, but it's also very safe. So I don't engage in anything that isn't safe for people, and it's very well grounded through the transmission of the gene keys. There are 64 keys, and we operate with 11 predominantly. And it just blows my mind every session I have how accurate it is. When I ask a question related to that particular gene key, the person gives me the answer in their own life's experience, which reflects that, whether it be the shadow, the gift, or the siddhi. And just so people understand, the way it works is when you are working with the shadow frequency, which we all need to do, we all need to face our demons. And then when we clear them out, we step up into the gifts. And then we start living a life of much more contentedness and happiness. And we can't make the siddhis happen. The siddhis will descend upon us when it's time. So what we are doing is preparing ourselves by shifting out of the shadow into the gift, such that when the siddhis arrive, that we can just embrace them. And what we mustn't do is what Laurie said earlier, is try and analyze it and work it out, because then they go away straight away. So we just have to allow them to saturate us with their beingness and their wisdom, with their bliss, their joy, their happiness, whatever it is. But we need to create space inside ourselves for this to occur. And that's what the work through the shadows and the gifts does, is to create spaciousness for the siddhis to come in. And I do believe that we are in this period of time now where we are downloading more of our higher self into form. We are now putting on more of our so-called light body or Buddha body or rainbow body. And we're now bringing it down and in. But to bring it down and in, we have to feel totally safe being in it ourselves, in our physical body. And that's why I think you've called this summit the self-empowerment, because that's what's really required now, is to be fully present in our bodies and really enjoy the sensuous nature of life.
I agree. Yeah, it came through my guidance to do this some months ago, of course, and then Loren and I worked together to create it. But it seemed so important that we work with those words, particularly
Yeah,
self-empowerment, and helping people understand at a deeper level how important it is to rise up now. And I mean, we all have incredible, unique gifts. We're divine creatures, brothers and sisters of light, all of that. And so many people just don't know if they don't remember it or they don't actually know it yet. They haven't awakened to that. But when you can find this deep self-love, this the divinity within you, the self-empowerment becomes so much easier to step into your gifts and to I don't know about you, but I find so many of my clients have obviously these wonderful gifts, but yet that particular gift comes so easily to them that they brush it aside. They don't necessarily think that that's important or powerful because it's so easy for them. And so that's one of the things I think this summit can address, is that the things that you're doing that just come so naturally to you, don't brush that aside. Don't think that that's not important, because that is part of your uniqueness. Your power lies there, as well as the awakening gifts that are coming in with the new energies. So um, it's all about
So
self-empowerment.
from my experience working with some incredibly gifted women, just like you, I think, why are they having this session with me? Because they are beyond me in terms of their knowing. And what I've learned is there is this very deep wound of a lack of self-worth
Yeah.
in many of these women. And so they won't go full on in their gifts because they don't believe they're worthy enough to do so. And I think my only job is to give them permission to do that in some cases. So again, part of the summit, I think, from your perspective, is to empower women in particular to recognize those gifts that Laurie just talked about fully and embrace them fully and go full on in their abilities. And that is what will change the world, because this is the return of the feminine. This is the return of that beautiful divine aspect of women that man has no idea what it is. And that's why the woman's been suppressed. It scares the men because it's so powerful and so creative. And all we've got to do is step aside, as one of the few men involved in this, is a recognition that when we just hold space for the feminine to do its work, it's so easy for both, because you feel totally empowered to do the work and we feel empowered because we haven't got to do anything. Just hold space. But so many men have, sorry?
That's so well said. The
Thank you.
divine feminine is this vast, all-encompassing love.
Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
softness, but there's a strength, and there's compassion, and that's many people are afraid of that. They're afraid of really loving. And of course
Yeah,
that has to start at home. Just a quick story is, in working with my partner, Master Buddha, she said years ago to me, she said, there's a lot of talk about how much you love God, and you're buying all these books, and I was having my spiritual awakening. This was in the 90s. And she says, and you're preaching all the time. You're up on a soapbox preaching about me and the animals and the dolphins and the whales and God. But you know what? She said, she literally looked at me. She said, I don't really believe you. And I said, why would you say that? She said, because I don't really see you loving you. And you
ah,
cannot love God more than you love yourself. You have all this extraneous love that's out here, and it's real, but the real love has to come from you. You have to sit next to me if we're going to do this work in the world. You can't be lifting me up and worshiping me. You have to bring it into yourself, and you have to see the God within. And I want you to go look in the mirror and tell yourself how much you love yourself. And we
great.
started doing their meditations. And
Yeah,
I mean, the fear came in of, oh my God, she might leave me because I don't love myself enough. The catalyst for me to really work myself and to embrace what she said.
yeah,
And other days
beautiful,
it would be like she said, I see you loving yourself more now. So I see the God within you. It's coming out. Keep going, keep going.
beautiful. Yeah,
And I don't know
thanks,
if that will
Laurie.
help other people, but I mean, the love of
Oh, it
self
will.
you have to let it in. We
Yeah,
have to. And if there's parts of yourself, of course, you don't like as much as you'd like to. I mean, we're always a work in progress. We're always improving. But the inner part that you talk about, the authentic self, the divinity, we must recognize that in ourselves so we can, you don't want to go home and not have done what you came here to do, right? You
exactly.
really have to. We
But
don't want to disappoint ourselves.
what you're actually talking about is the fear of rejection. And the fear of rejection is an external thing that we fear being rejected by someone else. But when we are whole and complete within ourselves, which is what you're describing, Laurie, then we can't be rejected because we are full on in our own loving of self and loving of great spirit. We can be disappointed and sad, but it's not going to pull a great plug out of our heart, which is what we're fearful of. So what you've just described is exactly that. Beautiful.
Wow, yeah, that is so beautiful. Thank you, Lori. It really shows the power of self-love and how we are the ones to give it. And I love that story. Thank you. Well, this has been a beautiful conversation today, a beautiful session. I want to say that there's two things that we can recommend to our audience. One is to get a personal session with Peter to unlock the hidden potential in your genes, your hidden potential. It will give you so much clarity. I think it's I'd like to say it could be a requirement for everyone, but this is a free. So helpful though. It really is helpful. And it's so beautiful. And then the other would be to do an exercise where each of us take inventory of that which we know so well. Like Lori was explaining, we have these gifts, but we overlook it. We brush it aside. We don't pay attention to it. That really will be powerful. So everyone, give yourself the gift of that inventory of yourself, what you love so much. That is really a great way that we can all show up in the world and to share it, because we're all so powerful in our own and unique ways. I want to thank you both for being here, and I want to give you both a moment to say final thoughts.
Well, for me, I feel very strongly that we are being geared up in the way in which the Earth is shifting through the cosmos, bringing down these powerful energies from on high. Mother Earth is increasing her frequency through the Schumann resonance. So the more energy we can ground inside our bodies, the easier this is going to be.
I agree. I believe the Earth is receiving, and again, part of this comes through my communication with my partner. I believe we're receiving more energy now than in any other time in history.
Yeah.
Master Buddha would go so far as to say, in the coming weeks and even 3 or 4 months, we're going to receive more energy through the Schumann resonance, the solar codes. The whales call them the codes of creation, than we have in 1,000 years. So time is accelerating. It's speeding up, and we have to, like you talked about, it's so important to ground. I ground so many times a day, I can't tell you. I never used to have to do that. And I do now all day long. I'm always grounding. And it helps me be present and be more authentic and be in touch with these energies. So everybody, just do your best to really stay connected to Mother Earth and to the elements and to nature, and to be authentic with yourself. Don't be afraid to love,
So my final comment is, as everything speeds up, as you correctly say, Laurie, we've got to slow down. And one of the creatures of the Gene Key dream arc is the sloth. That really slow moving creature. So it reminds us to slow down as the world itself speeds up.
Right.
And take time to be with ourselves.
Create that balance.
Yeah.
We're so grateful you're here. I can't tell you. I'm so excited when you signed on to do this, and I'm just forever grateful for the work you do in the world.
Oh, thank you, Laurie. I appreciate that. Appreciate you too. And you, Lauren, of course.
Yes, thank you. And from the land of Costa Rica, we are the sloth energy that we're bringing you.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yes, the sloths, they're so cute. I don't know if you've seen them.
So cute.
They have a little perfect smile on their face, like the dolphins. They're the dolphins on the land. So beautiful. Okay, slow down, everyone. Take that inventory. Get a Gene Key reading. It will be a great investment in your life. I want to thank both of you for the high vibes today and say namaste. Thank you.
Blessings to everyone.
Namaste.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.